My kids are pretty stoked I'm speaking to a BYU Idaho class. I think I'm like the queen now. It's fine.
Well, it's true. All right, so welcome everybody. Today I'm really excited to present to you Carrie Wren, which is still weird for me to say that. It's Carrie Walker in my book, but Carrie Wren. And Carrie and I go way back. I'm actually going to tell the story of how we met. So
Cool.
this goes back to probably 93 or 94 or something like that. I was a 12-year-old, very awkward deacon. And I remember one Sunday, I got to church, and I think it was a missionary farewell. Is that right, Carrie?
Probably. Were we singing in your ward? I don't even know the story.
I
I don't know what you were about to say.
All right. So I think it was somebody's missionary farewell, and I was sitting there in the front pews because I was gonna pass the sacrament, and I watched this family of women walk in to our ward. And anyway, a mom and 5 daughters, and they sit down, and I remember I looked over and I was like, one of these girls looks about my age. And so I did some shuffling. I think I was the Deacon's Quorum president, and so I had the authority to do this, and I shuffled around to make sure that I was passing the sacrament to this family. And that was Carrie. So Carrie was one of those daughters, not the one my age, just a little bit older, a very mature my maid or something, like too old for me. But and anyway, that kind of kicked off kind of some fun times with that family. Let's see. Okay, Carrie and I actually had, it was one of our first jobs was together. We worked at the O'Brien's tree lot, and it was there that I like tied Christmas trees to the top of cars that people had bought.
Probably I sold them and you tied them to the cars.
Yeah. So you were basically my boss from a very young age. And I remember this because I remember one night we were working, and Carrie told me that if some things worked out, she was going to take me to prom. It didn't quite work out, but I still remember like feeling very cool that a senior was talking to a sophomore about going to prom. So
I should have taken you to prom, but I don't know why I didn't, actually.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Kristen may have had something to do with that.
Actually, probably. That's my little sister, the one that was actually his age.
Yeah. All right. So then I stayed friends with the family, and I found out that Carrie has a specific love for somebody. And actually, I'm going to share my screen here real quick so that you can all see.
Oh my gosh.
Oh. And for those of you, my class.
I don't even know who these people are.
I know they're Gen. What are you guys? Gen Z or something? You don't know who these people are. So this
Mulder,
is
X-Files.
Yes. Oh my gosh, people know this.
Hey, you said A in this class. Whoever said that?
Please, I'd love an A.
Okay.
All right. Chris got extra credit. So yeah, we've got Mulder here from the X-Files, and this other Idahoan-looking gentleman is Sully from Dr. Quinn. Now, Dr. Quinn, that's another story because Carrie and I
have all those pictures. I should have brought them.
and yeah, some other people. We ended up going to the set of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, which was a great time. Capped off by somebody hitting you. I remember you got rear-ended.
Yeah, I got a car accident.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. But nonetheless, we soldiered on and got to the set and watched something be filmed at Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. So
it was like all my dreams came true that day.
All right, so for all of you listening that are like looking for shows to binge watch during quarantine, you've got X-Files and Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
There you go.
All right. Carrie was actually, you're going to laugh at this one. I think Carrie was my first kiss when I turned 16.
Oh, I was not. I never kissed you.
It's not what you think. She's like, that didn't happen. All right.
What happened in your dreams?
Yeah, no. I think you forgot about this, or it's just so great that your mind forgot about it. But when I turned 16, the day of my 16th birthday, we had a stake youth activity or something. And my mom went around and gave little things of lipstick to all the young women in the ward.
Okay.
Is this ringing a bell yet?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. You weren't my first kiss. It was other young women in the stake. And I remember it because like all of a sudden these girls just started kissing. So they put on lipstick and then kissed my cheek. I think this was my mom. I think my mom
You
was
know what?
worried.
I do remember that. I actually do remember that. I don't remember if I participated, but I think I must have been there because I do remember that.
Okay. Because I think my mom was just concerned about me getting any love from the ladies or something. And so she bribed them all with lipstick to kiss me. And anyway, just on the cheek, nothing too romantic here. But yeah.
And so your mom.
All right. Yep, that's my mom. All right. Carrie went on to study communications at BYU and kind of showed me around a couple of years later when I got to campus. Actually showed me where all of my classes were. I still appreciate that. That was super nice.
So nice.
And after studying communications at BYU, she went to work at KTLA, at a TV station in Los Angeles, which incidentally, after I got off my mission, I told Carrie that I was interested in dating Mandy Moore. Also, I hope you guys know who that is. But Carrie quickly told me that Mandy Moore was much too tall for me, so forget about it. That wasn't going to happen.
True.
Yeah, sad day for me. Let's see here. I forgot I'm still sharing my screen. Sorry, you're still looking at
We're still looking at that.
crushes here. All right, so after that, Carrie worked as a legislative, let's see, a couple things with Texas, right? You're at the Texas government working as a legislative, a bill analyst and a marketing specialist for the Texas governor's office there in Texas. And then interesting, and I love this because I remember when it happened, Carrie went back to school, got a master's in marketing at Northwestern, after which she went and worked at Pizza Hut eventually as a senior associate brand manager for Pizza Hut, which is super cool. Now Carrie works as a digital marketing director for, is it Two Wheeling Tots? I think I remember.
Yep.
And continues there. So with that, Carrie, I'm going to turn it over to you and stop embarrassing myself and you. And I'd just like to hear from you kind of your education. Why don't we start with kind of your education journey and then talk about your work in business. And then we'll kind of get into some questions and other advice that you have for students. I think, does that sound good?
Sure. So
right.
marketing was something that I found, in my opinion, a little late. I wish that I knew what it was when I was at BYU, because I would have probably pursued it much earlier. It was one of my life passions that I didn't know was a life passion, but I'm certainly glad that I eventually found it. And so my undergraduate was in communications, broadcast journalism. I worked at KBYU. And then I did television news for quite some time, and then had a quarter life crisis. But basically ended up back in grad school, studying marketing. And that's where basically has led to the rest of my career and the rest of my life, I would say. And for me, grad school was pivotal for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, clearly you have to go to undergrad to ever get to grad school. But I feel like in grad school, I learned so much, just different ways to approach problems that were higher level thinking, where it armed me with different abilities and different thinking processes that made me really confident really to go and tackle any job that somebody was going to hand to me. And then specifically in the marketing field, clearly I learned marketing skills as well. But also for me, grad school is just a lot about connections. And the reason that I got hired at Pizza Hut was because Pizza Hut had a relationship with Northwestern University, and they hired from them every year. So if there are certain places that you're interested in looking to work at, sometimes you need to go to grad school, honestly, to work there. So, and I also got paid a heck of a lot more money after I went to grad school. FYI, I more than doubled my salary. So if you're looking to make a lot of money, you might want to go to grad school. So what's the next question? Sorry. Did I answer that?
Yeah, so give us some kind of insights of working in business, and you've got some interesting um, work kind of in government and private business. So I'd kind of like to hear just kind of what you learned there and insights that you
Yeah.
gained.
So the three main things that I've done really is, as far as marketing goes, so when I worked for the governor's office, I worked in the economic development division, which is you're marketing the state of Texas. You're actually marketing a location to say, kind of like if you were tourists, like if we were doing tourism, we'd be like, hey, come visit Texas because Texas is so awesome. Don't visit Texas, it's not awesome. But as far as businesses go, that's what we were doing from a business perspective. Like, hey, bring your business, relocate your business to Texas because we have great financial incentives. Life here is great, education's great, all these things. So recently, like Toyota, the car, they relocated their whole business from my hometown to Texas. And now a lot of that had to do with, I mean, that's a lot of money to relocate a business, but it had to do with the incentives that they were given to come here. And that was my job there, was to market Texas as this premier business location. So that was really interesting because I wasn't marketing a product. The product was a place. And then for Pizza Hut, it was different because I was marketing food and I was marketing something that you can get anywhere. There's a bazillion pizza places there. You can just go to the freezer section in the grocery store, right, and buy a pizza. So that was interesting to take a product that was kind of a commodity, and you have to decommoditize it. You have to make it cool. You have to make somebody want this thing that really is ubiquitous and they can get anywhere. And then, so that went from working for government to working for a large corporation. And now I work with my best friend from BYU. Did you know that, Michael? Natalie, you knew, I don't know if you remember Natalie, but
Yeah, I looked it up. It's
yeah,
really cool what you're doing.
yeah. So she was my best friend and roommate at BYU. And just a little backstory. So I was working for Pizza Hut. I was single and I got married. This is 5 years ago. I got married very late. No, actually, I'm only 28. I did not get married very late. I got married very late. And as a result, and then when I got married, I inherited 3 kids and I decided to quit my job. And so I quit my corporate job but I still wanted to do something. I wasn't going to be like a kept woman and just stay at home. Like, who does that? And so I wanted to still work. And so my best friend offered me this job with her company. And it's really been kind of just the two of us. And what we're doing is we're marketing and selling information. So it's a kids bike review website. So I have a bazillion kids bikes, a bazillion trailers, child bike seats, helmets, all this stuff. We review them and then tell people what they should buy. And so in this case, we're actually selling information. And so I've sold locations, food or products, and information. And then I've also worked for government where you're not going to get paid anything. So if you have any desire to make money, probably not government. Corporate, you can make a lot of money, but it's very oddly political. Probably actually more political than working for the government. Political as in you have to say the right things to the right people and do what they want, or you're never going to rise in the ranks. And there's also a lot of red tape when it comes to working in the corporate world, because especially when you have like you're a publicly traded company, you're responsible to a lot of stakeholders and shareholders for your decisions. And so it's very difficult to make decisions. Like, for example, at Pizza Hut, anytime has anybody ever had cheesy bites? Does anybody know what that is? It's a Pizza Hut pizza. It's delicious. You should try it the next time it comes out. But for example, that was a project I was working on. And every time you have a new product, you have to determine its pricing, how you're going to promote it, the amount of time that you're going to promote it. And all of that we determine as a marketing team, and we think we have a really great decision, but it has to go through all these different levels of approval. Because it's a publicly traded company, and also because in this case, you're dealing with franchisees who own restaurants. And so there's a lot of different decision makers. So working in business can be incredibly complex when you're working for a large corporation. Now that I work with my best friend, we just make all our own decisions, and it's fantastic. We don't have to ask anybody. We make the decision. So as you're looking to go into business, I would say that's definitely something to consider, your personality type. Some people thrive in a big corporation and they love to climb that corporate ladder. I had a boss who, she's going to own the world one day. She's going to run Pizza Hut. She now works and is running something at Amazon. She's a genius, but she was the nicest person, but played the political game perfectly. I personally hated the political game and I was glad to get out of it. Like, I just didn't want to have to say things that I didn't really think because somebody wanted me to say them, you know? And so for me, I think this perfect place for me is a small company where I'm a decision maker. And we just make decisions on our own. And at the same time, we're fully accountable for what we do, right? We don't have any like backup net to catch us if we make a bad decision. But yeah, so think about that, because it really, your work environment's going to determine a lot of your enjoyment overall in your whole life and in your job. So think about whether you want to be beholden to the man, but also lots of fame and glory, or if you just want to kind of be more of an entrepreneur and strike your own path and do something small with some close friends that, you know, are going to make your life every day enjoyable. Did that answer?
Awesome. So I've got a quick follow-up question, Carrie, if you don't mind. And then students, if you've got some questions, start just kind of collecting those, and I'll turn it over to you in a little bit. But Carrie, you talked a lot about work environment, and I know everything that you're saying is true. I've worked for large companies, small companies, and it is important that you know how to speak to people. That you have that kind of social intelligence. What advice would you give the students in terms of kind of gaining that intelligence, that social network, and how to grow that and how to improve if they have trouble with that?
Oh, well, that is a good question, because to be honest, I am an introvert and I hate people kind of.
What? No,
I kind
no, you're lying.
No, but see, Michael thinks I'm lying, because people that I'm close to, I'm like, can be dynamic and fun, but like really, I freaking love being quarantined. I love it. I don't have to talk to anybody. Like, it's great. So that's actually something that I've struggled with especially in the big corporate environment of really just having to pretend like you like to speak in front of people. And when I tell people that I'm introverted and I don't like it, they're always shocked. But it definitely took a lot of practice, a lot of years of probably failing and not doing so great at that. But it is so important. But I think, I mean, I hate to say fake it till you make it, because like one time somebody got fired off The Apprentice show because they said that, and Martha Stewart didn't like it. So I've never like wanted to say that, but it's kind of true. Like if you're not confident, you have to pretend you're confident, because nobody wants to talk to somebody that's not confident. If you don't own your ideas, nobody wants to listen to you. Nobody's going to care. So if you don't believe in your idea, nobody else is going to believe in your idea. And if you speak too softly for them to hear you, they're not going to bother to listen. So I think a lot of it has to do with also just your own confidence in your abilities. So even if you don't like speaking to people, or it's hard for you to get up in front of people, like, don't ask me the last time I spoke in sacrament meeting, because I don't know when it was, because I hate it that much. But it is something that you have to do. You have to get in front of people. You have to sell them ideas. You have to be able to communicate clearly. And it's just a matter of doing it. And if you don't do it, you'll never do it. Does anybody speak a foreign language? If you've ever learned a foreign language, until you actually go to a country and are forced to speak it, you don't really know it until you do it consistently. And it's the same thing with, I mean, you think you speak English, right? But sometimes are you like, oh my gosh, can I even speak my own language? Like, I feel like that sometimes, where I just feel like vomit is coming out of it's like word vomit, like, and nothing's making sense. But it just comes with practice. And I think also, I mean, we did not grow up disadvantaged in the fact of texting your phone is your life. Like, that wasn't how we grew up. So we actually grew up talking to each other. So I think you do have a bit of a disadvantage there as well. But I would just say go out and do it as much as you can, as young as you can, even if it freaks you out, because if you want to be successful, you have to be able to talk to people.
And that's a great point. I was just actually talking, I have a 13-year-old daughter now. And anyway, it was interesting. Carrie knows this, like I called the walker home quite a bit when I was young. And that was
Like a phone.
Yeah.
A phone wasn't even cordless, like it had a cord.
It had an actual cord. And man, that was horrifying the first couple of times, but you kind
Right? But you had to get over it.
and,
Yeah.
and then it becomes kind of more natural. And my daughter doesn't have that. She doesn't have a cell phone. I'm not getting her cell phone. And so like her anyway, her relationship with other kids her age is very different. And your generation, you and the class are kind of dealing with that as well. That's great. Awesome. Any so Carrie, you good if we open this up to questions for a little bit?
Yeah.
All right. So any questions? It could be about Carrie's professional practice or education. You can ask questions about grad school, undergrad, majors, all of that stuff. Feel free to unmute and ask the question, or you can type it into the chat and I'll read it.
Do they get extra credit if they ask questions, or am I just going to sit here awkwardly?
Yeah. Extra credit, guys. Come on.
If they don't have questions, was there somebody? Sorry.
I just can't tell if I'm serious about that.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I guess a question I have is, I have things that I'm passionate about. I really liked what you're talking about, being passionate about something and really caring about, like the decisions that you're making, the ideas that you have. And, there's things I'm passionate about, but I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah.
It just seems so far away and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how do I even start this? I'm just a college student, don't have a job. Do you think it's important to have like a stepping stones, like an intermediary job where you can save up some money first? Or do you think that it's better to just kind of go for it?
To go for your passion or to go for like grad school? Sorry.
The passion part.
Okay. Yeah, there is a part of being like socially responsible, unfortunately. I mean, if you listen, there's a podcast that I listen to that I highly recommend called How I Built This, but with Guy Raz. It's fantastic. It's about people who've actually made it really big and how they started. Go listen to it. It's great. It's a bunch of brands that you've probably heard of and you get to hear from their founders. But what they will say is eventually there came a point where they had to just give everything up and go for it. But they were also at a point where they had built up to that. It wasn't like they just graduated from school and were like, oh, I think I'm going to do this. I'm not going to get a job and I'm just going to go try to figure this out. Usually what happens is people work their regular job, and when they go home at night, they pursue their passions. And then eventually that passion, whatever business it is that you're forming, gets to be more than just a nugget of an idea, but an actual thing. And it becomes like your life becomes stressful because you're struggling with your regular job and you're doing this. And then you make that decision of, okay, I've made it enough progress with my idea that I know that it's legitimate. And so I'm going to quit this other thing and pursue this. So I wouldn't recommend just pursuing an idea because you have an idea and a passion and you have no money. And I would suggest getting a job, and getting a job that could be relevant to that, right? Like the thing that's great about business is it's so relevant to everything. So even if you get your business degree or whatever, and then you go get a job in business and on the side, you're figuring something out, you're going to be learning so much from the company you're working for. That's the thing. Like when I worked, especially like at Pizza Hut, I mean, as much as I don't really like working for a big corporate company, the people that I was surrounded with that were so smart and had so much experience, it's almost like you're getting paid to go to another grad school. Like I had just paid to go to grad school, which was great. And then I go to this company and now I'm getting paid a lot of money, but I'm learning just as much as I did in grad school at this company from these people who have done it. Certainly there are times where you're going to want to maybe forge a path where somebody hasn't done it before. And that's going to be scary, and maybe you're going to have to do that. But there's also the advantage of going and working for a company, figuring out what it's actually like to work in a real job and at a real company, because there's going to be things you like, there's going to be things you don't. And if you never even know what that's like, then it's going to be hard to create something that really is better than the other, right? That's better than working at a regular job because you don't even know. And also you don't also have the, I mean, unless you're Steve Jobs, which maybe you are, most of us aren't that genius where we really do need to learn from other people and kind of be apprentices to other people as we work in our places of employment. But that's also where you have to be strategic about finding a job where you can do that and not just going and getting any job where you're just sitting answering a phone or whatever. Even if you don't get paid well. I mean, my current job, honestly, I would do it for free. It's like my hobby. I love it that much. I landed in my dream job. Like I literally get free, like expensive bike crap. And I just test it with my kids and I love it. Like that's what I do for my fun. But it took a long time to get there, you know? So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and Carrie, I got another question here on the chat. This is from Blaine, and Jonathan likes it. All right, so he asks, what would you say were some big obstacles that you had to overcome to reach where you are in your career, like sacrifices, risks, etc.?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say one of the things is just figuring out what you're passionate about. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. And kind of how I said in the beginning of, I found marketing very late. I am 41, but I look 30, right? But I graduated from Northwestern when I was 34, I think, which is kind of like old. But I'm so glad that I did. But it's just continuing to pursue things that interested me, even if they changed over time. And eventually I landed in my passion. Some people are lucky to find it when they're 19 years old. Some people aren't going to find their true passion until they're 50. I was kind of lucky that I was in the middle. So I would say that would be one thing is, if you're not truly passionate about what you're doing, don't be content to just sit there and do it for the rest of your life. But also don't complain and whine and moan about it and be like hating your life every day, because there are going to be jobs that you don't love, jobs that you love more than others. So I would say that's a major obstacle, is just getting to a point where you really find your niche and what you truly love. Let's see, what else would I say? The education aspect for sure, like education takes time. And for me, the decision to go back to grad school, I'll say this, and this will probably resonate more with the women in this. How many are there? Are women here? To be honest, like I was raised as a member, I mean, I'm still a member of the church, but I was raised also in a different time where it was much more expected. Like the joke that still bugs me to this day is that people would go to BYU to get their MRS degree. Seriously, like somebody said that to me one time and I about punched her. But I know that there's still a little bit of that expectation that men are going to make all the money and the women are just going to stay at home, which if that works out for you, great. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But I struggled with going to grad school and making that decision because I thought, well, certainly at any moment I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have all this debt and I'm going to stay home with my kids and have all this debt. And so culturally and socially within the church, I struggled. And honestly, like eventually I just got told, I was like, I'm never getting married. I might as well go to grad school. But I do honestly wish that I had done it younger. And I think your generation is different in that you should do it younger, because there's so many opportunities. Even like right now, I work from home. I have a toddler and then 3 older kids, and I work from home. It's very flexible. And I was able to find something that completely works with my lifestyle. So I don't feel like I'm just sitting at home and only raising like crazy babies, right? Because that is the thing that I want most. But at the same time, my mind also needs to be stretched and fulfilled and feel like I'm doing something outside of just the motherhood role, which I will say is absolutely my favorite. Nonetheless, you need balance, right? So from a woman's perspective, I would say that is a challenge that I've had, was just figuring out when to go to grad school, whether to make the investment. And in retrospect, I wish I would have gone to grad school earlier. I wish I wouldn't have let but what if this happens, like rule my decision-making so much. And so I would say, even to the men though, as well, to that point, there's a whole lot of what ifs. You never know what your life's going to turn out like. You may get married next week. You may get married in 15 years. You may never get married. You may land the job of your dreams, the first job out of college. You may struggle to find that dream job for 15 years. Don't make your decisions based on what ifs. Make them based on your circumstances right now and what you want. So what are the decisions you're going to make to get where you want? So you, at least you have to have some sort of picture of what you want to get there. But also that's sometimes part of the struggle too, if you don't know exactly what you want. But so I would say those were my two major struggles. Everybody has different ones, so those were just mine.
All right, great. We've got two more questions that have come in the last little bit. So the first one is, how difficult has it been through your career to anticipate what people want and then interpret that need through marketing? And then what were some of the building blocks that help you understand people better?
Those are two separate questions?
That's from one person. So yeah, how do you anticipate needs and how do you understand people? That's the first one.
Okay, so how do you anticipate needs? So this is also depending on where you work, how much access to data you're going to have, but there's a whole, so I don't know how much you guys know about marketing, but there's so many facets to marketing. Some are incredibly math and analytics based. Others are completely qualitatively based, like consumer insights. So as a brand manager at Pizza Hut, we worked with the consumer insights team, and they spent so much time and so much energy and so much money just to understand the consumer. And so when you have a product that you want to market, if nobody wants that product, don't bother, right? Like, so with Pizza Hut, when we would come up with ideas, so the first thing we would do is work with our R&D team to come up with ideas of new products in the innovation process. And then we would take those ideas and utilize our consumer insights team, and they would put them in front of consumers, and we would get feedback on that idea. And so from a very early stage, we would know if there was interest in that idea or not. So consumer insights, however you get them, are absolutely imperative to any type of marketing. Because once again, if you're not creating a if you're not creating a product that solves a problem or solves a need or serves a need, nobody's going to want it. So you have to understand the need, or you have to understand the problem first to ever be able to create a solution. And then the same thing goes even, like, for example, with pizza. A lot of our pizzas we just had to find a new way to speak to people about pizza. What's the pain point of pizza? So for example, Little Caesars, I don't know who goes to Little Caesars. I actually love Little Caesars. They have you guys ever, raise your hand, so I can see, if you've ever been to Little Caesars and used their, have you seen what are they called? It's like the vending machine. Have you used the Little Caesars vending machine? Where like you order ahead of time and you just walk in the store and you type in a code and you pull your order out. You don't have to like talk to anybody, which is awesome. But it's also just really fast, right? So what they did was they understood the consumer. They understood, okay, a pain point for a Little Caesars consumer is that they have to go in at the store and wait to pay and wait in a line. And that was causing people to go somewhere else or to get delivery. And at the time, Little Caesars didn't deliver. They kind of do now, I think, with DoorDash. So they created this system that solved that particular pain point. So they probably did that by sending people into stores to sit and watch what people did when they were in the stores and to figure out this pain point, right? So that's honestly why I go to Little Caesars. And I think a lot of people are the same way. So that one consumer insight of, they like our pizza, they like our price, but they don't like standing in our lines, completely altered the way that they actually get pizza into people's hands. And so that consumer insight probably, I don't go to Pizza Hut anymore. I love pizza, but I go to Little Caesars just because it's easier. And so consumer insights, and that was an advantage because they're a large corporation, have a lot of money. But even so right now, when I'm working for 2 Million Tots, the way that we get consumer insights, because there's so many times where I'm like, oh gosh, I just wish that we could pay for a focus group or that we had access to so much more data. But so like what we have to do is we look at our social media and we look at what people are asking. We look at competitors, our own competitors on their social media and see what people are asking them. We look, so on our website at the bottom of every review or 10 best balance bikes list, there's questions that people can ask there. So we're always paying attention to what people are asking and talking about. even when we don't have $1 bazillion to go figure it out for ourselves. We just have to be more scrappy and utilize all the information that's in front of us because we don't have the money to go actually pay to get that information. So a lot of times it really is all about listening. And in the case of Little Caesars, they were also watching, right? But it's listening to what people are saying. And then also I had a consumer insights professor who we had this whole exercise about asking the question why, and how if somebody gives you an answer, why do you love Little Caesars pizza? And they'll tell you a reason. And then you have to ask them why. And they'll tell you a slightly deeper reason. But why? And you eventually get to this granular nugget of truth that's like, I hate standing in that line because I'm so stinking tired after my kids have been screaming at me all day long, right? Like that's the reason. And so they might actually create an entire ad campaign about that to like reach that frustrated mom, right? So it's about listening, but it's also about hearing and interpreting answers that don't resonate to you, because that's going to be, you're going to be in business positions where you may not even like the product you sell. Like, I don't know, like you might work for a shampoo company and be bald, like, but people still like shampoo, right? Like you might not like love and use a product or something that you're trying to sell, but you still have to get into the mindset of that consumer. And so that takes a lot of training to put your own biases aside and say, oh, what they're saying I may think is stupid, or I don't think it makes any sense, but that's their reality. So it's listening and keeping an open mind and training yourself to understand and accept opinions that don't mesh with yours.
Awesome. All right. This next question deals with kind of the benefits of grad school. So it says, you mentioned going to grad school significantly raised your salary. Did it also lead to employers seeking you out more or job offers than when you just had your bachelor's degree?
Yes. And I would say, honestly, that a master's degree is kind of becoming pretty critical currency for at least for the big companies. And also, like I said, just the critical thinking skills and the way that I was taught to approach problems was different in grad school than it was in undergrad. So it gave me the confidence to be like, yeah, I could do that job. Versus before I might be like, well, that job description, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Like, am I really? Now I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Who cares? Like, I've worked with idiots that have higher positions than I do. Like, I can totally do that job, you know? So it's about personal confidence, but it is, like I said, also so much about connections, and just like your own personal network of your classmates. Like, you're going to end up having classmates that go off to do really cool stuff, or and so you'll always have that connection, and maybe 10 years from now you'll need that connection. And then it is a lot about recruiting. So big companies typically recruit from the same universities over and over and over again because it's just easier for them. They know that they can get a certain type of education and quality out of certain schools, and so they will only go to those schools. So, I mean, if you were ever really that particular in like, oh, I want to work for P&G, which they're the people that like make Tide and Pantene and like every consumer product, they only recruit out of like 4 schools. I think like Michigan's one of them. I can't remember who they are, but like that could also determine where you go to grad school. It's if like, you know, that you want to work for a certain company, like you would need to go to school that they recruit from. But also the thing with grad school that also is tricky is it's really expensive. And you need to do your homework ahead of time to make sure that, especially with business, that people recruit out of there. Because I do have a friend that has an MBA. She got an online MBA and she got great skills, but nobody knows her school and nobody recruits out of there. She has really never used that and spent a lot of money getting it. Where for me, I went to Northwestern, which is the high-ranked school. And so for me, even if I didn't know I wanted to work for Pizza Hut going in there, but I knew that the school was high-ranked enough that it was going to provide me a lot of clout coming out, and that any investment I put in, I was going to get out of it pretty quickly because the school has so much clout. But yes, honestly, the reason I got hired at Pizza Hut was because they hire from Northwestern every year. But also the reason I got hired was because I was like one of the top students. So you also can't go to grad school and pretend, like hope to dink around and just, I mean, it's competitive and people want those jobs. So
So then good reminder for right now, all of you, if you want to go to grad school, you got to get good grades, which this
It's true, because listen, I will also tell you this. When I went to Northwestern is an expensive school, and they offered me, they offered me a scholarship, and but I got offered a full scholarship from Boston University, but I didn't really want to go to Boston University. So I used that as leverage at Northwestern and said, hey, these other people gave me more. And also look at my undergrad GPA. Like, you're not going to get a whole lot of better students than this. And I got them to like double my scholarship. But I don't think I would not have had that leverage had I not had like a good GPA coming out of BYU, because clearly they knew that I was going to perform if I'd already performed, right?
Where did you live in Chicago? Were you downtown or
No, Northwestern is in Evanston, which is
okay.
like a really kind of like rich suburb,
Okay.
just north of Chicago, like 15 miles.
Okay. It's just all the pictures I saw of you during grad school were like down on the river.
Oh, because yeah, like you just take the L down. Yeah.
Nobody's taking pictures in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got a good comment here from Camilla. She's just supporting what you've said. She said in her informational interview, one of her mentors made it clear that grad school is becoming very important. So, and just so you know, Carrie, that the students in this class, one of the assignments is to reach out to people in fields that they want to work at and just do informational interviews. And so,
that's fantastic. I mean, and if anybody wants to do a follow-up with me, if you can, I don't care. But that's one thing where until you know what's out there, you don't know what's out there. Like both my parents were teachers. I didn't even like know business was a thing, which is crazy. Like, I wish that I would have known like you could major in business. That was not on my radar. People in my ward where I grew up, that's not the type of place that I lived in. Like, people did more blue collar stuff and were teachers. And so I love that you're already expanding your horizons to even know like the basics of business. And then with this marketing, like marketing is within business, there's so many different things you can do. And marketing is just one of them. And marketing is for that person who loves analytics and also loves to be creative. You know, that's not always a combination you find. Like, I've always loved math and I've always loved English. And it's kind of like, how do you, usually those two things are very separate, but in marketing, you can meld those together. And even within marketing, there's so many different facets of marketing. Like I said, like some marketing is completely analytics based, some is completely communications based, and then there's stuff in the middle. So yeah, I mean, I still like want to do informational interviews with people for myself, like, for my next career.
Very cool. All right. Jonathan asks, how long was grad school?
So my grad school was only 15 months. It was short. So grad school doesn't have to be that long. Typically, like an MBA program is 2 years. And usually if an MBA, or like what I did too, you have a summer internship where you actually go and you work for a company. And now with an MBA internship, what usually happens is they'll hire you unless you suck. Then they won't. But the idea of getting an internship and an MBA, so you do 1 year of your MBA, then you go and get an internship with the company, and then you go back and finish your MBA, you do your last year, and then they'll hire you usually. For me, the way that we did ours was I requested an internship for a place that I was pretty sure I wasn't going to want to work, because I wanted to show myself that I didn't want to work there. So in marketing, have you guys heard of an advertising agency? Any marketer is going to work with an advertising agency, and agency life is very different than what's called client life. So there's the client or the corporation, and then there's agency, and they are very different personalities. And I didn't think that agency was my personality, but I wanted to make sure. And so I actually utilized my internship to show me that. And I was very sure after that, I knew I did not want to do it, but I was so glad that, because you're still going to have, I still knew that I was going to have to work with an agency. So it was going to be great experience for me to see on the inside how it is to work with a client. But I was glad that I used that short internship to kind of check that off my list and be like, nope, I'm going to move on and do this other thing. So that really didn't, that's not really related to the question, but internships are awesome for multiple reasons as well. But yeah, typically grad programs are between like 15 months and 2 years. And then also they have MBA programs that you can do in the evening. A lot of people do evening programs where you're actually, like, I had the advantage of, I quit my entire life and took out loans and went to grad school full time. Not everybody has that luxury, even if you are single, but especially like if you're married or have parents, like that's really not, or if you have parents, if you are a parent, that's really not very feasible. So they have a lot of flexible grad school programs now that allow you to do your full-time job and also on the side go to grad school. So, and I think a lot of that is because, to what Camilla's person was saying, like it's like a master's degree is so important now that people are creating so many different ways to get them because there's such like currency for any type of job.
And quick question, was the agency life anything like Mad Men?
I have actually never seen Mad Men, even though I love, wait, is that where Meghan Markle, no, Meghan Markle's on Suits. Is that even about marketing? I don't know. I've never watched Mad Men, but I think so.
Okay.
From what I've heard, it's very accurate. Those places are crazy.
Yeah. People sleeping in their offices and
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I would hate, like having been on the client side and like asked my agency people to do stuff, I like, as I'm asking them, I'm thinking in my head, they hate me. They absolutely hate me because I would hate me. But I'm in charge right now because I'm the client and I hate myself.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah, Meghan Markle was on Suits, which was about a law firm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Megan's a lawyer. Got it.
Yeah. So Suits is my show. Mad Men is your show.
Okay. I'll have to watch.
All right. And Camilla is also a Suits fan. Great to hear. Just so this class knows, Suits is based, one of the writers for Suits went to law school with me and based Suits on the first firm that I worked at in San Diego. So just so you.
Are you being serious or are you lying right now to look cool?
I'm totally serious. I know who.
Do you know Meghan Markle? That's the real question.
Yeah. Well, I know who Meghan Markle is based on.
That's cool.
It's pretty wild. So yeah, good times. But yeah, I had to leave San Diego. That weather was just too pleasant. So
Yeah, I mean
Rexburg for me. Do you have a TCU cup? What is that all about?
It's the only cup that I can ever find. My boys went to a TCU basketball game one time, so I always use that cup.
That's awesome. All right. Any last questions here before we wrap up? All right. Well, Carrie, on behalf of the whole class, thank you. This was awesome. Thanks for giving your insight and your experience. Yeah. And yeah, we've got in the chat lots of people saying thank you. So.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a chat, but I see 41 things in here. Thanks, guys.
Yep, they all appreciate you. So.
Well, you're so welcome.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.